tonight and letting us be part of your Thursday night lineup. I'm very, very, very excited to speak with our next two guests, both artists of national renown and also triple-barreled names, and very talented people to boot. We are looking at Infinithéâtre's upcoming presentation of Open House. Yeah, it feels like didn't we just talk to Infinithéâtre? Their show Dominoes at the Crossroads was a fabulous presentation. Last time we chatted with artistic director Zach, as well as one of his performers who worked on the adaptation of that particular show. This time we're looking at a play called Open House. It's about our very human tendency to compare ourselves to others in either good things or bad, who has it worst, who has it best. And of course, it uses real estate for this particular question. Joining me on the line, I've got the director as well as the writer. Hayden Taylor is an award-winning playwright, novelist, columnist, and documentarian, and he was on the show just last fall ahead of the opening of his play Alternatives at the Centaur. We had a great conversation, so nice to have him back so soon. And Dian Marie Bridge is the award-winning writer, director, and creative producer, currently artistic director at Black Theatre Workshop, and she's also having just a very busy spring because her show that we mentioned just a couple minutes ago has a couple more performances this weekend, Every Day She Rose. Welcome to Upstage, Drew and Dian.
A pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much.
It's great to have both of you on the phone. Thank you. And you can both hear each other? Drew, say something.
Yeah.
There he is. And Dian, are you hearing us?
Yes, I am.
Okay, fabulous. Okay, cool. I want to start off just by getting a few more details about the play because it's a new one. So, Drew, you've written about so many different themes over the course of your career. Why is real estate on your mind right now?
Well, real estate is I'm using a big, fancy English teacher word, a metaphor for the larger issue. Artistic director of Lighthouse Theatre in Port Dover. I was chatting with him, and he wanted me to do something. He was asking if I was interested in doing something political about, all the different things Native people can call each other, Native, Aboriginal, First Nations, Indigenous, etc. And that was interesting, but I decided I wanted to expand it more and let's do sort of, what about a discussion about who has been the most marginalized in Canadian history. And I started talking with him, and then I started talking with Infinithéâtre, Zach and all that, and Infinithéâtre ended up taking the reins on the story. And we just began to sort of play around with the idea of objectively stepping back and looking at Canadian history. And one of these situations where a group of people are trapped in this house, and they've got nothing to do but basically argue about this topic. So I thought, and I wanted to approach it through humor because you have to approach something like this through humor. And it just became a fun, interesting way of exploring history. Several years ago, I did a play for the National Arts Centre on a biography of Sir John A. Macdonald. During the I think sesquicentennial, and I don't know. I have fun doing these kind of things.
It's so interesting. You do mention humor, and that is kind of a hallmark of your writing and how you go about navigating all these super thorny issues. Dian, I want to bring it to you for a moment. What do you think about this idea of using real estate as a scaffolding, this idea of an open house? We're coming in to buy something. It's an experience so everyone can relate to. Just about everyone's checked out an open house for whatever reason. You're helping someone buy, you're looking to buy yourself, whether you're fully committed or just thinking about it. What can you expand on that a little bit about using that concept and then enlarging it into the bigger conversation Drew's trying to get at?
Yeah, I think the way we've been approaching it here in the rehearsal hall is that even though all of these characters are engaging in this almost like oppression Olympics, who's got it worse in this country, at the end of the day, they're all in the position to actually buy a home. And the reality of this market is literally like, who are the people who can actually afford a home? So socioeconomics comes into play, and folks are really trying to go for the exact same thing. They're all in a position where they're trying to buy into this very middle class ideal version of their lives, and at the same time they're trying to hold on to the oppression that they have all endured. So it's really kind of a humorous take on how much are we holding on to, what are we letting go, what truths are we telling ourselves, the narratives that we're telling ourselves about our reality as well.
Home ownership is a really hot topic because it's become so hard to buy. In Montreal, the market's just heated up so much. And we're looking at a generation that doesn't approach can't approach home ownership in the way our parents and our grandparents' generation did. So, Drew, you say that you've been toying with this idea for some time, the open house, real estate, who can buy. Have you kind of had to update some of your writing or your thinking as we've gotten into this housing crisis? There's not enough homes for the people in this country.
Well, when I originally wrote the first draft of this, it was aimed towards the Toronto area. But I've obviously had to tailor it and focus it for the Montreal area. But for me, the big irony is the fact that I'm writing this play, and one of the characters in the play is Indigenous. And, there's this sort of, I don't know if you want to call it guilt or whatever, but the fact that as Indigenous people who have had issues with land ownership with the dominant culture, the issue never seems to go away. It just seems to pop up in a whole new, different manner. So in this particular case, we've got these four different people from different backgrounds vying for the same land, including one Indigenous woman who just says, it's like, how can we buy something back that we didn't have the right to sell, kind of thing.
Diane, do you have any thoughts on that? Do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting point because it speaks to the idea of ownership of land itself and how we have all bought into this system when before this, there was a reciprocal relationship with the land. And I think that goes across multiple countries and cultures. The idea of owning land is something that is a very colonial idea as well. So what's our relationship with that structure?
I'm speaking with Diane Marie Bridge, who you heard just there, Andrew Hayden Taylor, the writer. Diane is the director. Open House is coming to Factory Studios. I'm going to get to the location in just a second because it may not be familiar to you just yet. Opens next week, April 18th, running until the 28th. Drew, it's so funny that you said this is for a Toronto audience originally, where you're kind of based more out there, where real estate is just nuts, if we can use that expression. Montreal's kind of catching up in a certain way. And so it's nice to know that you've tweaked things because Infinithéâtre really prides itself on Montreal stories for Montrealers. I guess I wanted to go back to Oppression Olympics. That's the word I was thinking about. Diane, you brought it up. This idea of comparing oneself to others. Who has it worst and who has to be silent on a certain topic because you can't speak to something like that? Is it a futile debate to kind of compare and contrast? Like, do you guys find yourself slipping into these conversations where you're like, I think my people had it worst? I'll put that to you, Drew.
Well, I mean, yes, in many ways it is apples and oranges. You can't sit down and throw things out to try and top one another. But in the situation that this play takes place, I think it happens that, oh, yeah, that happened to you. Well, this happened to me. So I think in this particular situation, when they're killing time, they're waiting to get out of the house, the street has been blocked off by the police for something else. So they're trapped in there. And I think it does become a situation of one-upmanship. We've got an African Canadian, we've got an Asian man, we've got a Jewish woman and a First Nations woman and a white woman who actually owns the house that's selling it. So, it's little snippets of Canadian history that are brought there, and the sort of the guilt, the anger, the understanding, and the history that all these people have about where the people came from and what they had to endure in Canada suddenly comes out in this particular situation.
Drew, you go ahead, Diane.
Oh, I was just going to add to that. I think, too, that this play coming out at this time is really interesting because if this had come out even 5 years ago, the language that we have around these kinds of topics wouldn't have allowed for the kind of discussion that we have now on stage. I think the last few years in society, we've actually started using words like intersectional or just having deeper conversations around intersections between different groups of people. And it's manifested in this play, which is quite humorous, and there's a real connection to the zeitgeist and just the language that we have and the access that we have now in terms of understanding that we wouldn't have had before.
It's always fun to see something that's so immediate and really speaks to what we're living through. For the both of you, the last thing I want to ask is, did you find yourself rooting for one of these characters? Drew, you just walked us through some of them. We have a Jewish woman. We have a Black character. We have an Indigenous person trying to buy the house. I'm just curious to know if your biases came through or if you found one character more sympathetic than the other. Diane?
Well, and you're leaving out the Asian.
And the Asian man. Yes, thank you.
Right. Well, no, I mean, obviously, I'm First Nations, and I had to bend over backwards not to give the Haudenosaunee woman all the great lines.
Yeah.
I look at each of the characters and try and attack this issue from their perspective. Hopefully, I've done this. This is going to be up to what the audience and the actors have decided. So, no, I didn't have a favorite, other than the fact that, as I said, I'm Indigenous myself. I wanted them all to have a full history, a full character, and their opinion being as intricate and as detailed as anybody else's. When you say all likable or whatever, one of the characters is not very likable, but I think I hopefully have made him unlikable in a realistic manner.
Right. Well, I think if audiences saw your work Alternatives at the Centaur, you did give space not just to the characters with Indigenous background, but the other characters have room to grow and express themselves. Even, we can decide whether we're sympathetic to them or not. But yeah, you have to have these fully fleshed out characters, even if someone's bringing something different to the table. Diane, did you find yourself relating more to one character over the other?
No, I think because I am myself not a homeowner, and I look at all of these characters as, we have an academic, we have somebody who owns 3 businesses, we have someone who is freshly divorced and is buying a house for fun, that sort of thing. I've put myself in a position where I'm not judging any of them. Right. It really is just trying to bring out the fullness of and the duality of each of the characters. So we see their humanity, even if they're at this time playing someone who's kind of unlikable. But the tactic is really they all want the house. So that's how we're dealing with it. Is all those traits that are kind of unlikable are really about navigating how to get the attention of the home seller.
You both are coming across as very equitable, benevolent, very diplomatic in your answers. So I applaud you for that. Drew, you were in town last fall. Will you make it out this month to see the show? It's a world premiere.
I've got my train ticket ready. I'm looking forward to seeing this because we deal with so many social and political issues in this play by 4, 5, if you include the white woman, their perspectives. I'm a little worried about this. As I was telling Diane, I'm expecting to be canceled when this play comes out.
It's going to take a lot to cancel you, Drew Hayden Taylor. You've won too many prizes. Your name is on too many things, I think. This has been really great to chat with both of you. I'm really energized about seeing the show right now, hearing your description of the characters and the stuff that's going to be up for debate here. So thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
Oh, it was a delight.
Oh, and Diane, we'll see you this weekend. Will you be do you have time to balance your 2 shows for Every Day She Rose last weekend?
I will be there. I'll be there at the end of the closing. So
Fabulous.
I won't have a chance to see it again, but yeah.
Okay, to the both of you, don't forget to hydrate and get lots of sleep because you were very busy, both of you, and I appreciate you taking the time to join Upstage.
Thank you so much again.
My reserve, grazie.
I love when he uses that line. That was the voice of Drew Hayden Taylor, playwright and director Diane Marie Burridge. Open house April 18th to the 28th. Opening will be on Friday the 19th at 8 o'clock, and it's at Factory Studios. I had to Google this. That's okay. You can Google it too. So it is at 2000 Notre Dame East. And if I say the Jacques Cartier Bridge and the Molson Brewery, that's going to give you an idea of where it is exactly. So it's kind of where Molson legendarily has been brewing beer for a very, very long time. So Papineau Metro, and then walking there. And I think there's parking nearby, but don't take my word for it. Tickets at zeffy.com, Zeffy. You can also head to Infinithéâtre's website, infinithéâtre.com, INFINITHEATRE.com, and also email boxoffice@infinithéatre.com. There is a hyphen between box and office, 514-987-1774. Tickets are $30. Reduced prices are available. And we were mentioning Diane's other show, Every Day She Rose, 4 more performances.